Hi guys, it's Jane, and we are up to the part where we've done our clusters. And I heard some folks talk about they had some problems with the clusters, that it seemed like they were rippling. Now, I have a feeling I know what you were doing, and I'm going to demonstrate here what I think was happening. And I think what was happening is there's a stitch here and here that look like they're two separate stitches, but you have to choose which one you use. You don't use both. You use either this one or this one. So that when you were doing your cluster, if you did, like two in here, you did one in here, and you started in here to here, you would get some buckling. So kind of keep that in mind when you're doing this. I think that has been the major issue, and we are now ready to move on to our now that was the double crochet 3 together, sorry. So we're ready to move on to the half double crochet cluster stitch. That is what we are doing next. However, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Hope it doesn't make you too seasick. But first we're actually going to do a row of double crochets. So you've chained 3, turn, and there is your increase. And now you're going to do double crochet all the way across, and you're going to put one in that stitch, one in the chain 1, now you choose which stitch do you want, this one or this one. I'm going to go ahead and go into this one, and then I'm going to put 2 there, because that is where we did our chain 2. And once again, I'm not going to use this one, I'm going to use this one, but I'm going to show you something here. When you go across here, you look like you have a little gap. So this is where what I'm going to suggest. Is that you actually put one in that stitch, one into what looks like another stitch, one in this space, and then again going into the one that looks like a stitch but really is not a true stitch. Oh, come on, quit splitting. You know, some days are a little pain. Then into this one. One into what is your chain 2 space. Then into that, either, like I said, when you're doing the double crochet 3 together and you're coming across working it into that row, you actually have to choose which stitch or you're going to get a lot of buckling. And you're just going to repeat that all the way down. It looks a little smoother when you're going across than putting 2 in the 2 double chain space. So I am going to finish this up and meet you at the center, and we'll get back to that part and move on. And we're back to the center. So in our center we will put 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, and then we'll go into that next stitch, double crochet, next stitch, double crochet, and then we'll do a double crochet in the chain 1 space, double crochet. Now, you know where I told you normally you would not use both of those sides of that stitch, because I'm using both sides of the stitch instead of the chain 2, putting 2 double crochets in there. This is what I call how you fudge it. You are fudging this so that it looks a little more even along your sides instead of having a little space between here and here. So, like I said, 1 double crochet in there, 1 in this side, oops, 1 in this side, and here's our chain 2 space, but I'm only going to put 1 in there, one on this side of that double crochet 3 together, and 1 on this side, 1 in the chain 2 space. And when you're looking at that double crochet 3 together, this basically is 1 stitch. Both of these are 1 stitch. You could technically, I guess go down in between, but that's not really how you do it. You either choose this side or this side once again. So I'm going to finish up this side of the row with 2 in the very last stitch here in the chain 3, and then we'll chain 3 up and turn, and we'll start the next row. And that should bring us to row 24, I believe. And of course, the way that it's going to be written, zoom in a little bit there, is that chain 3, turn, double crochet in same stitch, double crochet in each stitch across, placing double crochet in chain 1, and get rid of that, chain 2 spaces, using both sides of previous. This is the way I would write it. Previous double crochet 3 together, a double crochet, 2, center, chain 1 space, and then we would put the 2 double crochet, whoops, chain 1, 2 double crochet in chain 1 space, and then you'd repeat on the other side. Now moving on, I am actually going to explain a little bit about this when I wrote the pattern out for this row. Many times I refer to these as legs. This is a leg, this is a leg, and this is a leg. So when you see that in a pattern, that is basically what they are telling you in combination stitches, that they want you to use a portion in one stitch, one in another, and one in the next. So I hope that made a little bit of sense. I don't know, I can't remember, and I haven't gone back to look at it to see if I actually discussed that. Move out a little bit, and then we'll get on to the half double crochet cluster stitch. Now since we're doing a half double crochet, I shouldn't have told you to do chain 3, we should have just done a chain 2. And place second. You'll do a half double crochet into the same stitch and into the next stitch. Now, this is how half double crochet clusters work. You basically go in like a half double crochet, then you'll go in again, pull through 2, and normally they will tell you half double 3 cluster, 4 cluster, or whatever, and then you would do that again. Now does that look familiar? That looks a lot like the double crochet 3 cluster to me, but I'm going to show you a second stitch which a lot of people use, and it is that half double crochet cluster over 2 stitches, which basically you would go into the same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, then you would yarn over, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through all those loops. And then you would do the same thing over again. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then go through all those stitches. But you're basically going to put your first stitch into this same stitch. In other words, you're kind of going to go backwards and then go into the next one and then go into that one. Now you can certainly do that all the way across, but what I found is it got really ripply. After a while, because you're building up so many stitches along here, you get sort of a kind of ripple, and I really didn't like that. The other thing is I think it looks too much like the double crochet 3 together, so I decided, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I decided instead to move on to the next stitch. Now if you want to use that stitch, you're more than welcome to use that. But I thought, you know, I'm going to move on to a popcorn stitch. So here's the popcorn stitch. And it will usually tell you 4 or 5 times, 3 times, whatever. So I am going to say, let's do this 4 times. You're going to do your half double crochet. You're going to repeat that 4 times into that same stitch. And then you are going to do this. You're going to hold on to that loop. Then you're going to go back to that first stitch and front to back. Then you will grab that loop and pull it through. And then you have a popcorn stitch. Now you'll notice that I am on the back side of my shawl. So do I really want that popcorn stitch to go that way? But let me show you something about popcorn stitches. We're going to skip one, go into the next one, and we are going to do the same thing. With a popcorn stitch, you can actually do the opposite. So instead of going in the front, we're going to go into the back, pull that loop, and pull it tight that way. Then you have your popcorn stitches on either side. You can certainly do that all the way across, and we can do that if you would like to. I'm going to show you what I did on the other shawl. I kind of worked ahead on it, and what I chose to do on it was, when I got to this part, instead of just one double crochet row, I did 2 double crochet rows, and then I decided, you know what, I'm not really going to be happy with that, so I decided just to do the puff stitch. And then I came up here and I decided that I was just going to do a bobble stitch. And that was that one. Like I said, you can change it up however you like. And we can continue on by bringing this one back up to the front. 2, 3, 4. Going back in front to back, grabbing that loop. Oops, get all the loop on there. And pulling it through. Skipping another stitch. Placing 4 more half double crochets. And then going into the back of that stitch, grabbing the loop and bringing it forward. And that makes a nice little, like I said, you're going to get this kind of ripple effect. So I'm going to continue that across to the center, or close to the center, because I don't know how it's going to work out yet, and we'll see what happens next. Now here is my row up to the center, and I'm kind of liking the way that's looking. It's looking a little different. Of course, you don't have to use this stitch at all. You can substitute any other stitch you want. And what I came to was I had what I call a back popcorn. So I've got 3 stitches, so I can do one more forward popcorn. And it's kind of what we're going to call them, forward and backwards popcorn. But in the notes you will have a description of what the front is and the back is. And this is a forward, because it brings the popcorn forward. Now, I have another stitch here, but I'm just going to do 2 double crochet. chain 1, 2 double crochet. Oops, we don't want to do double crochets, do we? We're doing half doubles. I want to put 2 half doubles in there, because that would really change the height of the stitch. Boy, I don't know. This red heart today is really splitty. Chain 1, 2 half doubles. And then I would skip this stitch and do a front in this one. 1, 2. See if I can hit the hole. 3, 4. And then I'm going to count back 1, 2, 3, 4 into that stitch. Grab that loop and bring it forward. And then I'm going to skip one and do a backwards one. And then we'll just repeat that sequence across. And I don't see ripples. I don't see where it's really pulling up. That's what we're looking for, to make sure it's not, you know, gathering it up too much, or that it's getting real wavy. You don't want it all bunched up, and you don't want it real wavy. So we'll continue on to the other side till we get to the end there, and I'll catch up with you then. Now we're up to that other side here, and normally you would skip one, which we are going to skip one. You're going to put a double crochet there, double, half double there. Is that what we did on the other side? No, we didn't. Somewhere I must have gotten off a little bit. Let me get that back in there. Get that loop picked up. Back forward. I wonder how I did that. There's no telling. Here's the fudge. You can certainly do this. And create that stitch, and then add 2 in the top of that double. So you would have 3, but I don't like the looks of that. And like I said, I was going to show you how to fudge things. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to skip that, do this here, do one here, and actually I'm going to put them both in that stitch. And that'll bring us up for that increase. I'm going to skip that chain 2 altogether. Now I am going to tell you, I tried to crochet this side a little tighter to see if I could get it to curl up. I could not. I am a loose crocheter by nature, so apparently I could not do that. But some of you may actually have it curling because you are tight crocheters. So you may need to put a chain 1 in between each stitch, still skip a stitch, and do your popcorn in the next stitch. You may not like the front and backward on both sides. A lot of people don't like to feel texture against their back, which you could do one of two things. You could add another half double crochet or double crochet row and then do front popcorns all the way down. And that would certainly get you where you would have just that texture on one side and not the opposite. It doesn't bother me a bit. In fact, sometimes I think it's kind of nice to feel, something like that against your back, but you may not like that. Or you could just do this stitch instead of bringing the popcorn forward. You could do the popcorn where it is in the back, all the way across. That is going to be up to you. That'll be completely your choice. Sorry about the shoosh against the microphone. So yeah, you have that choice to do. And when we get to the writing portion, it would be row 25, be a chain 2, half double crochet in same stitch, half double crochet next stitch, and then front popcorn stitch, skip one stitch, back popcorn stitch, skip one stitch, and then of course you could put your asterisks there, to the center space like we have been doing all along. The repeat 2. And this is why I say that notebook paper for you guys, some kind of pad or something. So if you are doing something different on this portion of the cowl, you can repeat it so that you can write it out so you'll know what you are doing. Or you may not want to repeat it and follow what I'm going to write on the patterns. You're going to repeat to the chain 1 space. And actually, if I remember correctly, we got to where we were. Yep. I had 1 stitch left. So I would put repeat to stitch before chain 1 space, skip it or skip that stitch, two half double crochet, chain 1, 2 half double crochet in chain 1 space, and then we would repeat what we did over here. Is we would skip next stitch and we would do a front popcorn, in that next stitch, skip 1 stitch, back popcorn, next stitch. Then you would repeat that down to the end, where as you can see somewhere along the lines I got a little screwed up and I did my fudge. You may be perfectly right on there. I may have added a stitch on the previous row, I don't know, but you know what? I'm not willing to rip it out. But if I were writing this pattern for sale, I would fix it. I would find out where my mistake was. And you do that by frogging. But I'm not going to do that with this because this is just a recipe for writing patterns, learning to read the patterns. Okay, your next row would be row 26. And I skipped over the puff stitch, so I think we'll do the puff stitch on the next row. I think what I'm going to do, see how that ends there? It actually curves in. I am going to need to have to add that stitch in there because I don't like the way that looks. So I am going to go down into my chain 2, put a half double crochet, and I am going to go ahead and put another half double crochet so that way it evens it out a little bit. Now we're back on the front side. For me, you may have done more rows of single crochets or whatever. Now here you need to decide if you want to do a double crochet row or if you want to put half double crochets all the way across. I think I'm going to do a double crochet row. And of course we're going to put 2 in that last one, same one. Double crochet in the same stitch. And then I'm going to double crochet my way across to the center. Finding stitches as I go. And this is one of those where you may want to see where the stitch normally falls, which would be there. This is pretty much the same way you determine when you're doing a hat if the next stitch is your false stitch or not, is because you would look to see where the next stitch would normally fall. And it looks like it's going to fall right into that same one. So maybe we need to put 2 in that one. And then you're going to look at it and see if that's going to work. And you'll continue across in that manner. And this is where your stitch count is probably going to be a lot different than my stitch count. Because on many of these, what I'm going to do is I'm actually not going to put that extra stitch in there. I am going to crochet across entirely to the center, and I'm going to see if I get a little bit of a drawing up, curling or not. And I'll meet you at the center and tell you what happened with mine. I didn't have to get halfway over to the center for it to see where it was starting to curl. And this is where I'm going to completely take it out, back down to that stitch there. From there, I am actually going to put 2 in each one, because they look pretty big in their stitches. Oops. Let me move the pad out of the way. Zoom in just a little bit. See how large my stitches are there? That's why I'm going to put 2 in there. And that looks like it's actually going to lay a little bit better, a little straighter. So I'm going to continue that all the way across and on the other side as well with putting 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet into the previous chain 1 space. And then we'll come back and actually we're going to do 2 rows of double crochet because we won't get back on the front side. No, we don't. We don't need to do that with the puff stitch, do we? Can you tell I'm still a little sick? Can't figure it out. See you back in a few minutes. And I am now back up to where I am on the right side of my pattern. And I have gone ahead and written row 26, basically was chain 3, turn, double crochet in the same stitch, double crochet in the next 2 stitches, 2 double crochet in each large chain space, in large chain space in between each popcorn stitch to center space, and then you would do the 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet, and then you would double crochet in the next 2 stitches on the other side with 2 double crochet in each large chain space between each popcorn till the last stitch, where you put 2 double crochets, last 2 stitches, double crochet in the next 2 double crochet into the top of the chain 3, and then I did another row of double crochet just because. Now this next stitch is the puff stitch, and we have 2 more stitches to go. And the puff stitch is a pretty nice little stitch too. Chain 3, chain 2, put a half double crochet into that same stitch, and I'm actually going to put 2 more half double crochets in the next 2 stitches before I start the puff stitch. Sorry about that. The puff stitch, let me zoom in a little bit. The puff stitch basically consists of you yarning over, going into the next stitch, pulling up a loop, yarn over, go in again. You're going to do that 1 more time. Then you're going to yarn over and pull all but this last stitch. Then you'll yarn over and pull through 2. Once again, and actually I'm going to put another chain there because I'm going to skip this stitch and go into this next one. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, and those are in the same stitches. Pull through to the last one and then pull through 2. Chain 1. Sorry about that. Had a little sneezing going on. Okay. Now I've already done my chain 1, so I'm going to skip the next loop. And once again, you're going to go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through all but the last stitch, then yarn over, pull through that loop, chain 1, skip 1, and we're going to continue that over until we get to the closer to the chain 1 space, and then I will meet you up there. Now I'm up to my center point, and I'm going to do, I've done my chain 1, do another bobble stitch, puff stitch, chain 1, and you know, there's a couple of ways you could go about this. You could actually put a bobble stitch in here, but we still need to increase. So instead I'm just going to put 2 half double crochets because we are doing half double crochet puff stitches. I know I just said bobble, sorry. Oops. Dun, 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 dun. 2, we did our chain 1, 2 more half double crochets. Okay, now on this side we had a chain 1, so we're going to put a chain 1 again here, and we had skipped this stitch, so we'll put our chain, our puff stitch in here. Chain 1, and then we'll continue working up the side, skipping, putting a puff stitch, until we get closer to the end, and I'll meet you up again there. And here we are on the other side, the very end. Now you remember that we did a half double crochet in these 2 here with 2 half double crochets in that last one. So I want to get in that area, and I think having the last 5 stitches will work out, although it's going to look a little different on this side. But you'll see when we do the next row, it may work out just fine. So we're going to do our puff stitch in there. And because we have the chain 1, then we're going to skip 1. And we are going to do a half double crochet into the next one, and 2 half double crochets into that chain 2, top of the chain 2. Now you may have to fight with it a little bit, like I am here. And not going to work out that way. So I am actually going to bring that out like that so I can get in there. Now we're going to chain 2. And we are going, whoops, sorry about the camera. Keep hitting it. Shame on me. So for this next row, we are actually going to do a half double crochet into that second in the same space, sorry. And then we will do 1 here. And then we will chain 1, and we will place our puff stitch now into the chain 1 space. Once again, chaining 1, skipping the puff stitch, going into the chain 1 space, and doing our next puff stitch. Chain 1. And again, we're going to just repeat that all the way down to the center till we get to that chain 1 space. And I'll meet up with you when we get closer to that end. Okay, we're back to the center spot. And I have one more there that I'm going to do my puff stitch in. Chain one. And I think we can put another puff stitch right in there. Puff stitches, yarning over 3 times, going into that same stitch, yarning over, going through all but the last stitch, then yarn over, go through 2 and chain 1. Now we're simply going to skip this stitch here and do 2 half double crochets, chain 1, 2 half double crochets, and then we are going to chain 1. Going to skip that and go directly into our chain space for the puff and do the puff all along that side there till we get to the end, and I'll meet up with you then again. Now I've worked up to the other side here, and I've worked my last puff stitch into there, and I'm going to do my chain 1, going to skip this stitch and this one, and I'm actually going, nope, is that what we did on the other side, guys? It is. We actually did the 2 and then 1 stitch. So we will skip this stitch, do a half double into this one, and 2 half doubles into that chain 2 area. I think I did that wrong. Yes, I did. There we go. And another one. Okay, now you could continue doing that, for several more rows, but I've had about enough of that puff stitch. So I'm actually going to pull my loop out because we need to write those 2 rows, which I should have wrote this row when I got to it and started it, but I didn't. So basically we're going to look back and see what I did for that row 28, which is this row here. I did the 2, so I chained 2, turn, and then I did a half double crochet into the same stitch. I guess I do need to bring you in a little bit. Okay, and then I did, there's those, I did a double crochet, a half double crochet in the next 2 stitch. Stitches, and then I did a puff stitch in the next stitch, and then I chained 1, which is here, and we skipped a stitch And then we did a puff stitch in the next stitch, and we repeated that. So I'm going to do my shorthand. Which would be right there to start and right there to end. So then I would put repeat, to there, and then we need to get up here to our center spot to find out what we did. Best practice is to write it as you go. Two, three stitches before chain one space, which would bring us to right here. Nope, we can do that to the last stitch, to one stitch. We can correct that to the one stitch there. Skip next stitch, 2 half double crochet, chain 1, 2 half double crochet into chain 1 space. And then we got to move on to the next side, and the next side that we did here. Whoops, I forgot my chain 1 before there, didn't I? We actually had a we would need a chain 1 right there before that. Okay, and then we get to the center there again. We've done our 2 half double crochets, chain 1 there, 2 half double crochets. So then when we're starting the next side, we're going to have a chain 1, skip next stitch, puff in next stitch, chain 1, skip next stitch, puff in next stitch. And then you could put your beginning of your asterisk there, second asterisk there, and you would repeat and then that's where we need to find our what we did here on this bottom row. which is right here. We worked to the last 1, 2, 3 stitches for, let's say, 5 stitches. Last 5 stitches. And then we would chain 1, skip next stitch, half double crochet, next stitch, 2, half double crochet in last stitch. And that brought us up to row 28. So row 29. Now if some of you have more rows, you may have done more repeats, you may have done less. Excuse me. So you're going to have some changes, but like I said, there's always ways to fudge it, and I've already shown you a couple of those. So the next row is chain 2, turn, half double crochet in same stitch, half double crochet in next stitch, chain 1, puff, stitch in chain 1 space, skip, puff, stitch, chain 1, puff in chain 1 space, and you could put your asterisk. Where do we want to put our asterisk? Actually, I'm going to put a chain 1 here. Then I would put my asterisk here and here, and I would probably write across 2, and that's where we go to find out what we did here in this center spot. To I'll write it that way, to stitch before center, chain 1 space. Then all we have to do is put the 2 half double crochet, chain 1, 2 half double crochet, comma, and then we would put a chain 1. I would go ahead and put my asterisk there. And I would put puff stitch in next chain 1 space, skip next puff stitch, and I've put my asterisk there, so I'd put my double asterisk there, and I would do the repeat to, this from that to the end here where we got to. Do that last to the last 5 stitches. We would skip the puff and the next stitch, half double crochet in next stitch, 2 half double crochet in last stitch. So now row 30. This is where you need to decide if you want to continue with those puff stitches. But like I said, I've had enough. Now, the next stitch is a bobble stitch. I am currently on my front side of my shawl, so I will need to work to where I am on the back side, because bobble stitches are worked on the back side of your piece. So I need to decide, do I want a double crochet row in between or just a half double crochet? And I am going to put a double crochet row. So I am going to bring that back down. I'm going to move my notebook out of the way. Now I'm going to chain 3. And I'm going to turn. And I am going to put 2 double crochet, not 2, a double crochet in the same stitch in the next stitch in the chain, and then the next stitch as well. Oops. Let me get some more yarn up here. And then I am going to do a double crochet into the chain 1 space, and then into the puff stitch, and the chain 1 space, and the puff stitch, and I'm going to work that all the way across to the center chain 1 space. So let's write that. We have done a chain 3, turn, double crochet in same stitch, double crochet in the next 2 stitches. Chain 1 space, double crochet in top of puff stitch, and I would just write it across. Probably put repeat across. To the chain 1 center space. Now I'm going to do that and I'll meet you up when I get to that point. Well, now I'm up to that center space almost. I've got one more chain 1, do a double crochet in, double crochet into that stitch, into the next stitch, and then 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet in there. We'll do double crochet in each one of these, double crochet over here. Now let's get to writing it. And what I should have done is put this right there, the double, repeat across to the chain 1 center space, which we've already put in are those stitches, so we're going to put 2 double crochets, and actually I need to change that up, repeat across to not the center 1 space, 2 stitches before center chain 1 space, double crochet in next 2 stitches, and then 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet into chain 1 space. And then let me finish that out. I have to put my 2 double crochets, and then you're going to put double crochet in next 2 stitches, asterisk, double crochet, let's get those 2 stitches, double crochet in chain 1 space, double crochet in top of puff stitch, you can put your asterisk there, repeat from 1 asterisk to 2 asterisk, 2, and we'll go ahead and skip over here and see what we get to here, because here we would go into that last chain 1 space. So what I would do is 2 last chain 1 space. So you'll work all the way up to there, and you'll put a double crochet in the last chain space, double crochet in the next 2 stitches, 2 double crochet in the last stitch, and we will write that out. Double crochet in last, chain 1 space, double crochet in next 2 stitches, 2 double crochet in last stitch. Now I'm going to work that up, and then we'll get to the bobble row. And now we're ready for our bobble stitch row. Bobble stitches are very easy. I am going to chain 2, turn, half double crochet into that same stitch, and I think I'm going to do another half double crochet. Now we are going to do what looks like a half double crochet into the next stitch, and that is the start of the bobble. Going to pull up, go through 2, yarn over, go back into that stitch, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. We have 4 stitches. You want 6 stitches. You're just going to keep doing that until you have 6 stitches on your hook. We have 5. Now here comes the 6th. There are 6. That's all you need to do. Then yarn over and pull through all. And there is your bobble. Now, you can actually just keep doing bobble after bobble. But let's see what happens. Do you want your bobbles that close? Which that would put them in like that. And you could keep doing that all the way across and you'll have a nice little feature. Or you could decide that you want to do a half double crochet in the next stitch and then do a bobble. Oops, I don't think I started that right. Start over, Jane. Six, pull through all, double crochet into the next stitch, and you've got a little bit of a space in between, and I kind of like that look a little bit better so you can see the bobbles separately. And you can continue that all the way to the center and then do 2 half double crochets, chain 1, 2 half double crochets. But I'll work that up to the center and then I will get back with you. Okay guys, I've worked up to my center point here, and what I'm going to do is I actually ended my last stitch was at half double crochet, so I would put half double crochet, the 2 half double crochets, chain 1, 2 half double crochets, And then this next stitch here, I would put a half double crochet and then start my bobble stitches. Now that is the way that this row is looking. You could actually put a single crochet in here and really make them pop, but I'm not going to do that, because then you've got to do a single crochet when you come back to get to do another row of the bobble stitches. Then you actually have to do a single crochet, half double crochet, so that they wind up being the same stitch length. I am going to finish up there. The only other thing I would do is on this other side, I'm going to crochet it all the way back to the last let me get back here to the last 2 stitches. I would do that, do a half double in there. Actually, I would do the half double there and then the 2 half doubles in the last stitch. I am going to finish up there and pick this up again the next time, and I'll show you how you can either do more bobble rows or get into the next section. Sorry about the camera moving there, jarred it a little bit. But while you're not seeing 6 hours in the making, this has been 6 hours in the making. So I'm ready to take a break and cook dinner and move on. So I will see you again next time for the finishing part of the cowl, and then we'll discuss the tea cowl at the end of that. So I'll see you again soon. Everybody have a great day. I hope you're enjoying this, and we'll see you again soon.